When it comes to practicing an instrument, it seems that the only way to make progress is to spend hours upon hours practicing the same drills again and again until your hands are bleeding. But what if there was a way to effortlessly improve in only a fraction of the time? What if the secret to rapid improvement lies not in how long you practice, but in how you approach it? In this guide, we'll dive into everything that you need to know, covering the questions that almost everybody asks, a simple practice routine to get you the best results, and lastly, my top tips when it comes to optimizing the time that you spend with the guitar. Now, you know the drill, let's get to it. As a beginner, it's really important to understand that when it comes to practice, consistency will beat intensity. Therefore, if I was starting out, I would maybe aim to practice 10 to 30 minutes every single day. This way, because learning an instrument is mainly a result of neuroplasticity, that being your brain physically changing and forming new connections, it is crucial that you expose yourself as frequently as possible to playing, therefore giving your brain the signal it needs to grow. Learning guitar is also somewhat affected by your physical capacity, that being the toughness of your fingers or the strength of your hands. Therefore, almost think of learning an instrument as you would going to the gym. You'll likely get far stronger training 20 minutes but super intensely every single day than you would if you trained for the whole day but at the end of every month. So because of this, I think it's much better to practice a little bit but every single day rather than one long session once a week, even if that long session is more than the total little practice times. These little sessions also come with a few other advantages, such as on the shorter bouts of work, you're likely to be more focused and efficient, rather than longer, hours of practice when you're likely to lose concentration, and therefore that practice won't be as useful as the short practice. Also, because these smaller sessions are less arduous and not as painful, you're far less likely to feel burnt out and to lose motivation. And finally, another point to add is that it's much better to practice less than you want to than it is to practice more than you want to. This way, you'll actually look forward to the next day when you can get back to it. Now, the frequently asked question number 2 is, what should I focus on in my practice? Should I focus on drills, exercises, learning songs, learning music theory? And whilst I'll cover this in a little more detail in the next section, the most important thing about your practice is that you actually enjoy it. Whilst it might be optimal to practice the best drills and exercises to improve as efficiently as possible, at the end of the day, you're less likely to make this a consistent habit if you're not actually allowing yourself to have fun with it. What you practice also depends on what your goals are. For instance, if you want to be a jazz player, then you'll probably need a bit of music theory, but if you want to play rock solos, then you might want to include some scales into your routine. So as you can see, this is highly individual, and it's really important to remember that you don't have to practice something just because someone said you should. At the end of the day, it's your own journey and you can take whichever path you choose. Now, with that being said, in my opinion, I think the most important part of your practice should be to learn songs, as I think that this is the quickest way to develop a really strong understanding of how your instrument works, because you can basically just learn from the best. And learning an instrument is almost like learning a language. Whilst it can be helpful to learn the grammar and the vocab to enhance your knowledge and to make sure you don't form any bad habits, at the end of the day, if your goal is to speak the language fluently, then the only way you're going to get there is by actually speaking it. With this in mind, when it comes to guitar, treat it as a language. And yes, it can be really useful to do the drills to get down certain techniques, and to be clear, I'm not saying that these aren't worth it, but by prioritizing learning songs where all of these techniques are all put together in one piece, I think you'll be really surprised by the progress you can make. Okay, so moving on to frequently asked question number 3, what should I do if my fingers hurt? When you're a beginner, your fingers will likely hurt because they're just not used to pressing down on the strings. However, within a few days or weeks, you'll begin to develop calluses and your fingers will be much tougher and it won't hurt as much. Now, if you are feeling pain whilst you're practicing, firstly, know that this is a good thing because it shows that you're pushing yourself and therefore you're accelerating your growth and improvement. Secondly, some tips to try and reduce this pain involve breaking up your practice into small chunks of, say, 10 to 20 minutes throughout the day, giving your fingers time to rest and recover. Also, if you have access to it, you can try switching to a nylon or an electric guitar, because the strings are much thinner and lighter on the fingers, so therefore it won't be as painful and you can practice for longer. And now, lastly, something that I did, and I'm not quite sure if I would recommend this, but when I was at school, I would take a ruler And when I'm just sat there like listening to the teacher, I'd press the edge of the ruler just into my fingers, and I'd just sit there with the ruler like on the fingertips. And I don't know if it really helped, but hey, if you're desperate, then you can give it a try. But ultimately, if your fingers are hurting, then it just comes down to patience and giving it time, and eventually your fingers will soon toughen up. Now, this last question is, how do I improve my finger strength and dexterity? Another common challenge that you may face as a beginner is finding it hard to press down the notes and the strings, and especially when it comes to bar chords. So if you are struggling with your finger strength and dexterity, then I'd say that there's two main ways to go about this. Now, the first is simply just by playing the guitar itself and challenging yourself with new patterns of movement, which will over time build this specific strength for guitar. Alternatively, you could just try strengthening the hand in general, maybe with a grip trainer or something of that sort. However, unless you just generally have weak hands outside of guitar, I would suggest that it's best to just develop this strength with the guitar itself, as this will have the best carryover when it comes to your playing. Right, so with that out of the way, I'll just give you a super simple practice routine that you can use if you're just looking for something to start with. Right, so to start off with the warm-up, you could begin by doing some stretches, as this will help to relax the fingers, and this is key for smooth playing. Okay, and I'll try and demo some of the stretches that you can do using my good old knees as my hands, so that I can use my hands to show you the stretches. So just basically, like with your fingers, if you just pull them back gently, like don't like try and do the splits with your fingers or anything, and just each finger, play it back, and I'd say you can do it both hands really, yeah, do that, and just each finger going back, and then you can also like stretching the wrist like that, and then you can do it that way, you know, that sort of stuff, because that's especially with your left hand when you're having to press down hard on the bar chords, then you may get some straining, I don't know, if you don't stretch. And you can also do that for the wrists, I don't know, if you're doing some intense flamenco strumming. But yeah, just kind of whatever you feel like. Also thumbs, don't forget the thumbs. Jesus, cow. That was a cow. I'm not just saying cow for no reason. That was a cow that I think just died, quite frankly, so. Alright, oh god, another one. Dropping out like flies. Anyway, I've gone a bit kooky. It's getting late. So that's the stretching routine. Moving on. Now, once we've got the stretches, we can follow this up with just a 10-minute or even just a 2-minute warm-up of just playing a song that you've already learnt and memorised but not quite perfected. And this is just to build your repertoire and get your fingers warmed up and in the zone for playing guitar. And now next, it might be a good idea to spend a few minutes just learning some skills or doing some drills and exercises for harmonics or percussion or bar chords and like techniques that you want to learn. So maybe just spend 10 minutes and going through exercise. Check out some of my tutorials if you're looking for exercises for these skills, and yeah, just build on that a little bit every day and you'll get those down. Right, so now for the main section, and I really just dedicate this to learning songs, or I might be maybe jamming or trying to come up with my own songs to, you know, let that creativity flow. But this is really just building up your repertoire, as I said before, and learning songs, just exposing yourself as many songs as you can. Maybe, I'd say, learn a song every 2 weeks or a month, depends how hard the song is. But once you've learnt the song, move on, and then you can master that song in your warm-up. See, I've thought this through. And yeah, like I mentioned with the jamming and coming up with your own pieces, this is really good for your creativity, and that creativity also helps your motivation to learning, and it'll just be more fun. Now, you may have noticed that I haven't included any music theory per se, but controversial opinion, but I don't think this is too essential as a beginner, and I think it's really easy to feel overwhelmed or put off when it comes to music theory and then just demotivated. So I think it's best to not learn music theory and just learn songs than not do anything at all, if you get if you get where I'm going. Although with that being said, it might be useful just to spend some time outside of your guitar practice, like watching some YouTube videos on techniques that you're interested in, just helping to gain that exposure to the skills without having to put too much effort into it. Right, so moving on, and I'll try and absolutely rapid fire these top tips when it comes to practice and kind of your mindset and concepts when it comes to your practice. Now, number one, and this is really key, is to just start small, especially when you're a beginner. And this can mean if you're having a busy day and you don't have much time for guitar, just spend 10 minutes practicing a song. And you can also reduce the times of that warm-up, I said. So if you don't want to spend 10 minutes warming up, then just spend 2 minutes and then get straight into the main session. Number two, consistency is far greater than intensity. Almost think do less than you want and then you'll look forward to the next session when you can keep going. It is far better to do lots of little sessions than it is to do one big session once a week. Tip 3, quality over quantity. There's no point playing the same song that you can already play perfectly well over and over again on hours on end. Instead, it would be far better to spend just 30 minutes learning a new song and improving your skills. And to develop this idea of focusing on quality, you can also set goals for your sessions. So perhaps learn 10 bars of a new song. This way you'll stay focused and you'll know if you've had a good session or not, because you will have met your goal, rather than just kind of mindlessly going, I'll just play guitar for a bit and see what happens. Tip number 4, focus on the basics. If you have less time, just stick to what's simple. Don't try and overcomplicate it and overwhelm yourself, especially when you're just starting out. Tip number 5, and this plays into the quality aspect again, is just remove all distractions and focus completely on the guitar, and then you'll spend less time but you'll get more results because you're putting more of your little brain cells into it. I know. You have very big brain cells, I'm sorry. And now tip number 6, and this is less mindset and more just the practicalities of practicing. It's really important to tune your guitar, and you've probably heard this, but you don't want to be practicing with a not tuned guitar, because then you'll get used to it sounding bad. But you need to get your ear and train your ear to know what sounds right, and this will help you so much when you're composing later, and it will help you to identify melodies if you've got a better ear. So tune your guitar. Now this next hack, and I hear almost nobody talk about this, but this is something that I did. I don't know if I consciously did it or it just happened, but practice before bed. Now this may just seem like a silly idea, like why would you practice before bed? Surely you'd just be really tired. But it turns out there's a whole load of science about sleep and sleep's role in neuroplasticity, which, as we covered earlier, is key for learning an instrument. So I think that if you do practice just before bed, you're more likely to undergo this neuroplasticity, because that's the last thing that you've thought about. And I can remember so many occasions when I'd be learning a song and I just got stuck on it and I couldn't do it and it was so hard, and then I'd go to bed, I'd wake up and miraculously I can play the song just fine. So give it a go. Slap me, come and slap me if it doesn't work. Tell me I'm silly, but give it a go and let me know if it works. Now, of course, this last tip that I have for you is so important, but you just need to enjoy it, because you'll find that if you hate something, you're going to resist it and resent practicing. But if you're really keen and looking forward to it, you'll find it effortless to improve, and it'll just become a passion if you enjoy it. And also, if you enjoy practicing regardless of how much progress you're making, then you won't get annoyed and demotivated, because you're just intrinsically enjoying this actual practicing of guitar and you're not fixated on the outcome which comes from it. And this intrinsic motivation is far more powerful than the extrinsic, so just really enjoy it and then it'll be a breeze. So there you go, that's everything that I know about practice. And by now you too should be a master, equipped with the step-by-step process that I use to improve really quickly. So now you know how to practice, and the only thing left is to find these techniques and skills that you can learn and practice to make your playing sound epic. That's why I've created this playlist to help guide you through step by step, like this video, all the skills that I think every beginner should learn. So if you're ready, go ahead, check it out, and I'll see you there. Subscribe. The first is simply by playing the guitar itself. Challenge yourself. Oh god, I'm losing the will. And I'm losing my speaking capacity, but mostly just the will. And gradually you'll build that. Build this specific gradually over time build this specific strength when it comes to javelin. No, not javelin! Get your fingers warmed up and in the zone for playing guitar. I almost said javelin again.